Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode with me, your host, Ani. Today marks the first day of the year, and I'd like to wish a happy new year to those who celebrate it. But I also want to share something honestly with you before we begin. I personally do not celebrate the New Year's Eve in the traditional sense, not because I'm against it, but because it simply does not make sense to me. The 31st of December is a date we collectively agreed on. It was designed for administration, for taxation, accounting cycles, and corporate seasons, not because something meaningful shifts in nature. At midnight, nothing actually changes, the earth doesn't reset, the seasons don't turn, life doesn't begin again. For me, real renewal has always felt more honest when it aligns with the nature, with moments like the spring equinox, when life actually begins to move again, when growth, rebirth, and momentum make sense biologically and energetically. I still honor reflection, I still honor intentions. I just don't outsource transformation to a calendar date. And that's exactly what today's episode is about. How real changes doesn't come because time passes, but because we do. So let me start by asking this question. Why in life sometimes it feels there's so many possibilities and somehow they're out of reach? We're going to talk about parallel timelines, life's meaning, identity, and what people often call soul frequency or quantum identity. But as you know, I do not romanticize these subjects, and I'm not here to give you another version of wish harder, think positive, and the universe will deliver. That is just simply not me. I try to see things in a very pragmatic way, and I am responsible with this information I'm sharing with you. So in this episode, we'll explore how your internal state shapes which paths are available to you, how identity, alignment, and capacity determine what you can sustain, why manifestation isn't magic, and why your nervous system matters more than your desires, and how the life you want reveals itself when you fully show up. When I look at how most of us approach purpose, I notice a pattern. We think it is something external. It has to be a specific job, a calling we have to discover, a single right path we're supposed to find and probably stay on it forever. So what do? We scroll social media, we compare ourselves to everyone else and wait for someone magically happen. And when it doesn't, we start to feel lost, behind, and wrong, like everyone else has the manual for life except for us. But the thing is that this way of thinking doesn't create meaning. It creates immense pressure because purpose cannot be external. I've personally lived this. I've followed paths that seemed right on the paper, but it felt very hollow for me. And I know that feeling of waiting for life to hand you a sign only to realize that the sign was never out there. It had to emerge from me. This is where dharma comes in. Dharma isn't a job, a title, or external validation. It's the life your soul's frequency naturally aligns with, the expression of who you are when you're fully coherent, regulated, and present. Purpose isn't some sort of prize waiting to be unlocked. It emerges when who you are matches how you live, when your values, identity, and actions resonate, when your nervous system is regulated enough to feel safe with growth, when you stop forcing yourself into roles that do not fit and start acting from what feels true internally. Ego ambition tells us to chase titles, recognition, and success. that looks impressive to others. True purpose or dharma emerges naturally when we start turning into ourselves, when we teach, create, and lead from a space that feels authentic, not performative. When love, work, or creativity flows because we feel capable of holding it, not because we must earn it. So let me give you a few examples to clarify this further. I might believe my purpose is to fit the mold, like many others, getting married at a certain age, buying a house, climbing the corporate ladder, etc. But if my inner self thrives on adventure, risk, or creation, following that safe path feels suffocating. Purpose emerges when I break the norms that no longer fit and embrace what genuinely energizes me. I might think that my purpose is to become famous, admired, or validated publicly, but if my soul craves intimacy, depth, and real connection, chasing recognition will feel hollow. This is why many successful stars, despite enormous fame and money they have, they burn out, they lose fortunes, and turn to substances. External applause can never replace the inner alignment. Purpose emerges when I create, teach, or influence quietly, with integrity, even if no one is clapping. And the thing is, purpose is not outside of us. It's not a reward, a title, or a single path. It emerges when our inner world matches our outer life. When we start aligning, we start to see subtle and clear signs, opportunities that feel effortless, people who resonate naturally, work that feels meaningful without forcing it. And that is dharma. Let's talk about parallel timelines, but not in this mystical sense. Let's take a very practical approach. It's very important. The thing is, the world already holds countless possible futures, and not all of them are available to us at every moment. Which future you can step into depends on your internal state, your emotions, and your nervous system, your mindset. Think about it this way. Two versions of the same person can face the same exact circumstances, yet their experiences and outcomes will be completely different. If someone is stuck in the survival mode, living with stress, fear, or urgency, their life tends to be chaotic and reactive. They see the world in extremes, repeating patterns, and they experience intensity without stability. If someone is grounded, regulated, and coherent, their choices and actions unfold differently. Patience becomes possible, growth becomes sustainable, and opportunities that require consistency naturally open up. They both live in the same world, same rules, but different internal states that leads to different outcomes. Your inner state is literally the doorway to which future you can access. By learning to regulate your nervous system, tune into your intuitions and your true self, you will open up new possibilities that were previously invisible or unreachable. In other words, the world isn't holding us back. It's our state of being that is shaping which path we can step into. Shift the state and the doors open, not in this magical and new agey way, but you becoming coherent enough to move through life in alignment with who you truly are. Let us clarify something. Here is the part that a lot of people do not quite get about quantum shift. Quantum shift isn't about changing your circumstances. It is about changing your identity. It is not about what you want. It is about what you refuse to tolerate. It's not about what you dream of. It is about what you consistently choose, even when no one is watching. The moment your identity shifts, everything else begins to follow. For example, you stop abandoning yourself just to be chosen by others. Safety stops feeling boring and chaos stops feeling familiar. You realize that playing small, people-pleasing, or chasing validation is actually a trap, one that keeps you stuck in someone else's timeline. Think about it. Consumer culture, it thrives on insecurity. If you are constantly chasing approval, buying things to keep up, or trying to look successful to others, you keep feeding the system. Your attention, your money, your energy, all of it is monetized. Or social media and comparison loops that are engineered to make you feel that you're behind or missing something, which keeps you striving for external validation instead of tuning into your own dharma. Or education and workplaces and traditional norms. They reward compliance, not authenticity. People who play small are easier to manage, control, and exploit. Those who step fully into their identity and stop people pleasing are problem for the system. In other words, your misalignment isn't just personal, it is systemic. Society and capitalism profit from keeping people living in someone else's timeline, chasing someone else's definition of success, and tolerating what doesn't serve them. From the outside, nothing dramatic may happen. You might still go to work, scroll on social media, and live normally, but internally, a new trajectory is set. One that the old version of you could never access. And here's the controversial part. Most people think that changes come from action. It doesn't. Action is a symptom, not the cause. Most people believe they need circumstances to shift. They don't. Your internal standards, your self-concept, your identity, that's what moves reality. Once your identity shifts, behavior follows. Once behavior follows, reality responses, not magically, not by luck, but predictably. The real question isn't what do I want to achieve? The real question is who am I becoming in this process and who am I no longer willing to be? Now, let's talk about soul frequency. When people say your soul's frequency determines your purpose, they're not talking about vibration in this mystical sense. There is no invisible energy field you need to raise. What they're really talking about is the state. Your frequency is simply how you live inside yourself. It is the combined result of how regulated or dysregulated your nervous system is, the emotional patterns you fall back under pressure, the values you embody, not the ones you claim, your capacity to perceive clarity, respond intentionally, and sustain what life gives you. This is where a hard truth comes in. A dysregulated system cannot hold certain futures, not because they are undeserving, but because they are incompatible. Think of it like this outdated software. You may want the latest apps, you want the newest features, the highest performance. But if your system isn't updated, it will not run simply because the system cannot support it yet. It's the same thing with love, success, creativity. Certain futures require a level of regulation, stability, and coherence. So the work isn't about wanting harder, it's about updating the system. People love to believe that wanting something badly enough should be enough. That desire alone is a proof of destiny. But desire without capacity doesn't lead to fulfillment. It leads to self-sabotage. You don't access deeper love if your nervous system confuses intensity with intimacy. You do not access leadership if you collapse under responsibility or need constant validation. This is why so many people get what they want and then lose it. They get into a relationship and then destroy it with insecurities. They get the money, numb out, overspend, and self-destruct. Their internal system couldn't hold what their desire reached for. This is why raise your vibration is such a misleading and dangerous phrase. What actually changes your life isn't positivity, it's your capacity. When capacity grows, behavior changes. When behavior changes, outcome change. And this is how purpose identity, and so-called timelines finally make sense, not as cosmic reward, but as the natural consequence of who you are able to be. Here's the shift that changes everything. Your purpose is not something you choose. It is something that becomes visible as your capacity expands. When people ask, how do I find my purpose? What they're really asking is this: what should I chase so I can finally feel secure, valuable, and enough? That question already puts them on the wrong path. Purpose doesn't come from picking an identity, it comes from removing what no longer fits. As awareness grows, something subtle but profound happens. You see what actually matters, not what impresses. You stop chasing what drains you, even if once it excited you. Your actions become simpler, clearer, and quieter. Purpose is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need constant motivation or validation. It shows up as the problems you can no longer ignore, the responsibilities you are finally able to carry without resentment, the contribution that feels honest, grounded, and sustainable, not performative. And this is also why purpose changes across life stages, not because you were wrong before, but because you weren't capable of holding what you can hold now. What felt meaningful at the age of 25, for example, may feel irrelevant at the age of 40. Purpose matures as you do. And when it's real, it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like alignment, like relief, like coming home to yourself without needing applause. And so, where does manifestation actually fit into all of this? Not as a mind over matter, not as positive thinking, not as wishing reality into existence. Manifestation is not magic, it is participation. You don't create reality from nothing. You move through a field of existing possibilities. What determines which ones you access isn't desire, it is state. Your perception decides what you can see. Your nervous system decides what you can tolerate. Your behavior decides what you repeatedly choose. Different internal system, different paths activated. And this is why two people can be given the same opportunities. One expands and seizes it. The other collapses under pressure, fear, or misalignment. Not because one is in higher frequency, so to say, but because one system is regulated enough to respond instead of react. If I was to put this into a formula, so to say, it would be something like this. Manifestation equals capacity, alignment, identity, behavior, and then you get the reality. Capacity, for example, can you hold this situation without collapsing? You meet an emotionally unavailable partner. If your nervous system panics at intimacy, the relationship sabotages itself. Or alignment. Do your choices and values match what you want? Example, you value respect and honesty. If you tolerate dishonesty just this once, the opportunity for a healthy relationship could slip. Your identity, who are you? Being in this situation. Example, you act like someone who can love fully, give space, and express boundaries. If you overcompromise or people please, you will end up attracting the wrong dynamics. Your behavior. Are your actions consistent with your identity? Let's say you show your authentic self, test compatibility, and leave early if alignment fails. And that's a test. It's not easy for everyone. The question is, would you be willing to do that? And then the reality responds to the system you have built, your consistent capacity, your alignment, your authentic actions, you would naturally bring a partner, for example, who is capable, respectful, and aligned with your standards. When alignment is real, manifestations look almost boring. You notice options you couldn't see before. You make clear, more consistent choices. You stop sabotaging what's working. Nothing mystical happens here. It's a system, state, and your participation. So, my lovely listeners, I want to leave you with this. Your life's meaning isn't hidden in the universe. It's not something you chase around like a secret prize. It's encoded in who you are becoming, in the way that you regulate, align, and show up every day. When identity shifts, timelines shift. When capacity expands, purpose reveals itself. When you act from alignment consistently, authentically, and without compromise, reality doesn't bend magically. It responds accordingly. Your frequency isn't a mystical vibration. It is the state you carry inside. Your nervous system, emotional patterns, values, and capacity to perceive, respond, and sustain. Manifestation isn't a wish or a spell. It is participation. It is about showing up fully and knowing that you are aligned and taking coherent, consistent actions. It's realizing that the path you can access in love, career, life depends entirely on who you are and who you are able to be in those moments. So, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love you to share your thoughts with me. And again, thank you for being here and thanks for lending me your ears and for walking this path with me. Until next time, keep expanding, keep aligning, stay bold, and always go beyond the mind.